Hey, Tiffany.
Hello, cat.
I just want to say, can you take a drink out of your water thing again, real quick? Okay, that is like a giant mason jar, right? It looks like a vase.
Doesn't it?
Yeah,
This is
it's.
actually that is what it looks like. Is act It's not a vase. It's I got it to replace my giant uh Starbucks thing.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's great, but it's like a
So
mason
it's
jar.
like a venti size.
It reminded me, I was just like, because I was thinking, like, oh, who came over to my house and drank out of a vase once? And it wasn't that they were drinking out of a vase. They came over, we're like, yeah, just grab a glass. And I have like glasses out on my bar. And he like grabbed the crystal cocktail shaker, which is like
Okay.
a good 36 ouncer, and just drank out of that all night. And I was like, I got no problem with that. But that's what it reminded me of. And it was like drinking out of a vase. Huh.
That's amazing. I
Anything
love
is
that.
a vessel to drink out of.
Anything's a vessel.
Yep. Okay. Anyway, well, let's get into tonight. I have a story time.
Yay.
Okay, so one of the coolest things I used to like to take visitors to in northern New Mexico are the Earth ships. Have you heard of the Earth
Oh, I
ships?
have.
Yeah. When you are taking the high road to Taos or going like kind of around Tierra Maria and through to Taos, you pass these weirdly shaped buildings in the middle of the desert. And it is weird because there's nothing else out there.
Mm-hmm.
They are off-grid, sustainable, eco-friendly buildings. And they were designed in the early 1970s as a response to the pending eco-crisis 50 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
Haha. So they're really cool. They leverage solar power, reused materials, gray water, geothermal energy, lots of that. And they're expensive as hell.
Aha.
So today we're talking about off-grid living, what it means for the environment, how to do it maybe, and if it's worth it.
Yeah, and like question mark
Question
maybe.
mark? Welcome to Greening Up My Act. So welcome to Greening Up My Act. Tiffany, would you like to explain to the lovely people at home, what are we here for?
Yes, we are here to make it enjoyable for people to learn whether or not something is actually eco-friendly or if it's all just marketing fluff,
Right.
which we like to call green hooey.
Thank you for joining us. I did have a bunch of sources. You can look them up in the notes. I did click a lot of links and read the articles and not just take the AI summary, but some of the AI summary stuff I used, and I realized that some of these links are like, who are these people? So
Well, I mean, we're also talking about off-grid living, so I don't
yeah,
know how many
exactly.
like scientific studies there are out there.
Right. And
So
and again, I said last week that this is gonna kind of be vibes.
yeah, which I
So
love. And
yeah,
it's the end of our season. It's like
yeah.
like
This is the
you
last day
said
of
last
school.
time, we're
Yeah.
not being graded. So
Yes.
nobody's grading us on any of this.
This is
So
the last day of school. We're cleaning out our desk and we're vibing.
yes. We're throwing our papers in the hallway.
Yeah, we're watching a movie in every class, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what this is.
Exactly.
So, what are we talking about tonight? Off-grid living, right? Okay. And then, so my first question here is, what does that conjure for you specifically, Tiffany?
Honestly, this show called Homestead Rescue. Have you
Okay.
heard of it?
No.
Did I mention this?
Yeah, I think you might have mentioned. I haven't watched it. I probably have heard of it. I just haven't watched it.
It's a fabulous show because it's a bunch of homesteaders, I will say wannabe homesteaders, who don't know what the hell they're doing and just go out and live in the middle of nowhere
Okay.
and try to survive even though they have no skills.
Right. Okay. So that's kind of when I think off-grid living, I think doomsday preppers.
Yeah.
So people who are like, I don't trust the government.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna let the government. I'm gonna be off-grid. And like, I have people in mind that I have known in my life who are like, off-grid living is the way to go. I have a plan to execute it, and like they knew what they're doing. But to me, yeah, when I think off-grid, I think of pretty anti-government people
Yeah.
generally. not necessarily environmentalists, which is interesting because
Yeah.
they used to be both. And I guess they kind of, a lot of environmentalists are pretty anti government in a lot of ways still. But
Yeah.
mostly when you think anti government now, you kind of think January 6th,
Yeah.
you
It's
know,
changed.
it's changed. So, but I think, it's kind of one of those places where they can kind of meet in the middle and like, I don't trust the government. You don't trust the government. Let's not trust the government together and not
Mm-hmm.
plug into the grid. So what off-grid living really means is a living situation that is not connected to any utility, right?
Okay.
That means not electricity, no gas lines, water and sewage are also included. If you are fully off-grid, it's everything. So nobody's coming to pick up your trash. You're gonna have to have your own septic tank. You have your own like well system, and electricity is self-generated if you have any at all. Heating, fuel for cooking, etc. You are providing that yourself. You are not connecting to any utility lines.
Right.
That is probably actually the only choice in certain rural areas.
Well, yeah, and I was gonna say, like we talked about,
Yeah,
like people who are off grid, not by choice,
right.
last episode.
Yeah, but for most Americans or people in, the global north, as we call it, you good likelihood you are on grid or have the choice to be on grid, at least. So there's also some discussion about how off grid do you have to be truly off grid.
Oh,
So
interesting.
what if you have a 4G network or a satellite phone? Is that still off grid? Because those are technically a
Hmm.
grid, right? And what about eco communities that create their own grid? So they're off
Hmm.
major grid, but you can have
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the ones you sent me create their own grid. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of semantics, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the sites that I looked at said that one of the things you have to realize the difference between self-consumption and off-grid living. Okay? This is
Hmm.
a distinction you need to make. So self-consumption means you generate your own power, like through
Okay.
solar,
Mm-hmm.
but you're still connected to the grid, right?
Okay.
So you can contribute to that grid, right? Like my dad had solar panels on the house and created his own power and then would sell energy back to the grid
Okay.
when he made
Yeah.
more. And if he didn't create enough solar energy in a day to power the home, he was still connected to the grid so he could tap back into it, right?
Okay. Yeah. That's called self-consumption.
Self consumption.
Okay.
And I think there might be self consumption for water as well, but it's mostly talking about energy here. So off grid systems technically do not tap into any utilities. So you're on your own if your own system fails, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
an
Mm-hmm.
important distinction. But you're also not giving back into the bigger system.
Right.
So there's that.
Okay. Okay.
So it all kind of depends on your own purity tests, like the
Yeah.
semantics, what you think the goals of off-grid living are, right? Is it to be completely disconnected from the city because you don't trust them? Or is it, you know, a lot of these communities, they're interested in kind of getting back in touch with the earth. That's a different
Mm-hmm.
kind of off-grid living.
Yeah. Totally.
So, and I said this kind of last week, but people will point out that human beings have been living off-grid for most of our history because like there wasn't a grid. There haven't been
Yeah.
utilities for very long, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of the movements we were just talking about are aligned with off-grid living, like indigenization. So going back to the land and
Yeah. Yeah.
permaculture, both,
Right.
where people are leaving urban life and trying to get back to living off the land in more natural ways.
Right.
Again, it's the goals of your off-grid living, why you're doing it, and what you want from it kind of defines what off-grid living will mean, right?
Yeah.
Because I was saying my next point was like, it's also for people who just don't trust society or the government and believe that being dependent on public utilities, which are becoming increasingly privatized, is a
Right.
great way to usher yourself straight into apocalypse of your own making. You know,
Right.
like if I want to, it's some people will go so far as to say like your utilities are a way for the government to control you, right? If they get to say
Mm-hmm.
how much power you have and things like that, like
Which the way my power bill's going
I know,
doesn't seem so crazy
nope.
anymore.
And we have brownouts and things.
Right.
Um, so
None of it seems crazy.
yeah, it's
I think, yeah, when I said that that's what I think of when I think of off grid living, that is what I used to think of. But I'm learning so much now in my class and like
yeah.
just other sources. And I'm just like, oh, and I have eyes.
Right. Exactly. I do not, I mean, the trauma that I went through in 2021 when we had that big freeze and I didn't have power for a
Yeah.
week was enough for me to be like, I have got to figure out a way to get solar and have a battery just so I can heat my home for 3 days, even on a minimal, and even air conditioning here. If we have, you know, 2 summers ago, I think it got up to 110 for several days, and like our grid can't handle that. The Texas grid
Right.
infrastructure in this country has not been cared for.
No, exactly.
Okay, so off-grid living does make some eco-friendly claims, right? So most off-grid claims around sustainable living are really about, number one, reduced carbon emissions. By bypassing traditional power grids that rely on coal or gas, off-grid homes significantly decrease their carbon footprint, right? It's also to increase like sustainable awareness. If you are generating your own power, you're much more likely to be aware of how much you're using because there's a finite resource of it.
Right. Yeah.
So you're going to be more conservation minded. And that's true for water
Yeah,
too.
totally.
So if your water is collected from rain or wells, you have to be more mindful about using it compared to just like turning on your tap and getting unended water supply.
Yeah.
One of the issues that off-grid people propose is that the government is not choosing to do renewable energy sources.
Right.
So choosing to do them yourself, especially if you go off-grid completely, removes you from using coal burning energy at all.
Yeah.
So you're removing your household from the equation.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one way of looking at it. You can also save on energy costs for you, obviously, generating your own power. Um, you are immune to energy price spikes, basically, if you're using your own power. As long as you're using like solar energy or wind energy for your home rather than like propane, which is another thing.
Right. Yeah.
A lot of these kind of newer places that are living off the grid are trying to get back into being like self-sustaining communities also
Mm-hmm.
fully. I mean,
Yeah.
when I'm thinking the off the grid, like in Chama, New Mexico, I was looking at an off the grid house and it had propane for heat and cooking and like solar for other electricity, and had a well for water and all this stuff. It didn't have a plot to grow your own food, right? I would
Right.
still go to the grocery store. I was
Yeah.
just off grid for energy and water, right?
Right.
But these kind of intentional communities are about being self sustaining on every level. So off grid means not being in the grid to the grocery store. That's part of the
Mm-hmm.
grid too.
I have thoughts on that because I think it's just sort of like a culmination of a bunch of things and the fact that everything is so expensive now and there are new, like this freaking lettuce cyclospora or whatever the hell
Oh my
is like
gosh. Yeah.
infecting all these people. And it's just like that seems like it's more and more common. And
Yes.
it's so frustrating. I think it's like my class combined with this woman that I'm watching on YouTube. It sounds like it might be like a trad wife, but she's not. It's like
Okay.
Becoming a Farm Girl is her YouTube name. And she basically teaches you how to cook like your grandma did, but like her whole thing is that she looks at like grain reports and like crop reports and she can predict what you need to buy now versus we always think like everything's going to be available at all times whenever we
Right.
need it.
No, exactly.
But she says like our grandparents would be producers instead of consumers and they would produce for themselves and then the grocery store was sort of an additive.
Yeah.
And we have completely lost that because we
Right.
think we don't need to anymore. And it's like,
And for probably 50 years we didn't, but
yeah.
it's come back to now we do.
And it's kind of, to be honest, it's like kind of scary to think about, but it's also really inspiring. And I think because I have a crazy, crazy ass garden out there, I have stories, but like I am growing my own food and I'm like kind of learning how
To just use the grocery store as a supplement. Yeah.
Yeah, Yeah, and like I made pickles the other day. I want to get a pressure canner. I made my own sourdough starter. Like I'm
Oh,
just
nice.
trying all this shit, and I don't know
Yeah.
what I'm doing, but I'm trying it.
Yeah.
My dad knows how to pressure can actually because he learned from my grandma, but I'm like, you need to come over and teach me. But
Yeah.
it's just, I don't know. It's just this kind of crazy thing that we think is always going to be available.
Or that it always has been. And again, like
Yeah.
I was saying last week, this is very new.
Yes.
The Western American lifestyle is super new to how human beings live, to have food available without having to do any touching of the land at all, and to not know
Yeah.
where it comes from, and to not
And
know how much of a supply there is.
yeah, and I
Like,
think just mentally
mhm,
it messes you up as a human, I think, to not
on some
have
level,
any
absolutely.
connection at
Yeah.
all. Like
Yeah.
I'm growing just cucumbers and like a couple other things, but that has made me feel it's just like I don't know, it makes you feel like a producer
Yeah.
again instead of just a consumer.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. On that note,
Yeah.
I say we take a
Yes.
break, and then I'm gonna go back to our do these eco-friendly claims and you come back to Earth.
All
You
right.
know. All right.
Perfect.
Okay, welcome back. So, classically, in these episodes, we've asked, do these eco-friendly claims need to come back to Earth? And then we talk about, like, does this make sense? Does it hold water? So, like, and I think this is increasingly the answer. It's complicated, right? So there are a few things about a lot of off-grid living. A lot of off-grid properties still rely on fossil fuels, like propane, gas, or even domestic heating oil to run their generators or heat their homes. So it's not like you're going to be zero carbon in a lot of
Okay.
instances.
Mm-hmm.
The upfront carbon cost of solar panels is not nothing. We talked about that. They take an extensive amount of energy to create, as well as chemicals and processes that aren't carbon neutral, whatever that means, right? But in an off grid living situation, you are creating a culture that is focused on being more sustainable rather than trying to continue your life of American energy luxury without changing anything, usually because you are forced to. Like if you have to physically figure out a way to refill that propane tank when it runs out, you're going to be hyper aware of when you leave it on.
Mm-hmm.
If you only have so much solar energy that you can use, you are not just going to leave the TV on all the time, you know? So even if you are using fossil fuels on some level, it's probably going to be less. Couldn't find numbers on that necessarily.
Yeah, like I said, there's probably not many studies.
Yeah. But it is, you're just going to be more aware.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
So the other question that we've asked is this something a normal person can do or afford? Okay. This is where off-grid living gets a little bit funky,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Biggest issue with off-grid living is upfront costs. You've got to, I mean, land, building, infrastructure for power, water, composting, etc., and then you've got maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you could turn this house in the city of Austin off-grid. Probably not. That would be very difficult.
If you
I
just turned off all your electricity and then
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah.
like water and sewage.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a well, you know, like all kinds of that kind of stuff. You got to be in the right place for that, and you got to have money to buy that kind of place. So there's that. If owning a 3-bedroom home is currently out of your reach, starting your own off-grid living is definitely out of your reach. Okay. So Google AI butted in at this point and gave me a bunch of cost breakdowns, which I was like, fine, I will copy paste this. So estimating your initial setup costs, your upfront capital. They divided it into low end or minimalist setup and high end or comfort setup, right?
Okay.
Your raw land purchase, you're going to need anywhere from $1,500 to $5,000 per acre in a remote and arid area. That's for low end. For high end, you're going to need $10,000 to $15,000 plus per acre for fertile or accessible land. That seems kind of high per acre, but maybe not. No, I guess that's not. Then you're going to need to create a shelter, right? For a tiny home, you can get $15,000 to $45,000 for a small cabin yurt, or an RV. Okay. Or you're going to need
Mm-hmm.
anywhere from $150,000 to a $300,000 custom off-grid house.
Yeah. How much are Earth ships? Do you know?
Oh, it depends. They're pretty, I think they're in the
You said they're
millions.
expensive. Oh,
Yeah. Well,
yoy.
because they're
Okay.
custom.
Uh-huh.
And most of them come pre-set up because they're
Okay.
a planned community.
Yeah.
Your solar power can cost you anywhere from 2,000 to 50,000, with a battery and a bank for the whole house. You got water access for a rainwater catching system and filtration, 2,000 to 4,000. If you're going to do drilling a deep well and a pump system, up to 15,000.
Yeah.
You got 2,500 for a composting toilet or outhouse. And then you got up to 10,000 for a permitted septic tank system. So that adds up, right?
Mm-hmm. Totally.
At least 500,000 probably for a comfortable high-end home. You could maybe get away with 100,000 for a low-end setup, just kind
Yeah.
of depending. The other thing is, on those low-end setups, you're probably going to have to keep paying into it to keep things going. Because those
Right.
high-end systems are going to come custom built and like ready to
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
But these other ones, you're going to you got to move the outhouse,
Mm-hmm.
So then there's monthly maintenance. So that's the ongoing expense. A primitive budget said, you have to still deal with fuel, infrastructure keep up, and resource delivery. So a primitive budget is about $800 a month. If you already own, forage or harvest your own food, you can maybe get away for $800 a month on upkeep, 500 to 800 in a
Okay.
primitive setup. Modern or cold climate budget is 2,500 or more. What just happened? I don't know why my my
If you're
robot.
not if you're not watching on YouTube, you're missing out.
Yeah, my robot. Hi, Osbot. You can move.
Her camera just zoomed
It
right in
just
on her
zoomed
face.
right in on me. It just decided I need to be the star of the show. Okay, I guess because I was using my hands too much. Okay, so real world homesteaders in harsh northern climates report spending up to $10,000 a year just on propane, diesel, and firewood to maintain full heating and electricity.
Wow.
So maybe if you're in a more temperate climate, you don't have to deal with that. Again, air conditioning costs too. I'm sorry, I don't know how to zoom out. We're stuck here with right up my nose. Okay. And then the other thing is other aspects you have to take into account. So even if you are off grid, there are zoning and land laws you have to follow. There's minimum square footage homes, legal connections to some places will force you to be connected for emergencies.
Mm.
You can't use a composting toilet everywhere. You can't just drill a
Oh.
well wherever you want.
You can't have certain animals everywhere.
Right. There's all kinds of things you have to look out for that, you need permitting in advance or be prepared to pay fines, So
Wow.
you got to do all that research. There's something called the double what you expect rule. So
Right.
off-grid builds suffer from heavy hidden costs. A single long gravel driveway repair or clearing raw land can cost up to $5,000 before you even lay a foundation. Even if you get land, you paid $15,000 an acre for that land, you still got to clear it and level it and all those things. You can buy, I was looking at a pre-made off-grid home in Chama, where all I would have to worry about was the maintenance cost at that point. It was already set up. It had propane,
Okay.
it had a well, all these things.
Okay.
My dad talked me out of it because of the maintenance. I'm not a do-it-yourself kind of girl.
Right. Right.
He's like, you're not going to want to go start a generator at 3 o'clock in the morning in the winter, all these things. Right.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of girl. You also may be able to join an existing off-grid community.
Okay.
Right? Like the airships maybe, but those sustainable communities or intentional communities you were talking
Yeah,
about.
we had an episode about that.
Yeah. There are some, yeah, they are a mixed bag. There are
Yeah.
some that don't require upfront payments and you can work for your living. If you are ready to just give everything up and go, yeah, you can do that. But also they can be selective.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's a rigid application on some.
Yes.
The one I looked at, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
wow.
The community, often intentional community, tends to be built around existing types of like-minded people, right? So you might not get a lot of diversity of thought or skin color or economic background, which is important to me to consider for like my understanding of the world, is I do want
Yeah.
there to be diversity of that. Also consider that one of the reasons we developed grids in the first place is so someone else could handle the issues while we all specialize in our own professions and so that we
Mm.
all benefit all together, right?
Yes, that is, I think, the biggest factor for me is like on this homestead rescue show. Do you know the difference between homesteader and off-grid person? I don't know.
I feel
They
like,
overlap, I
yeah,
think.
there is over. I think homesteaders that also would definitely include the farming,
Mm-hmm.
right? And kind of a making everything from scratch. An off-grid to me could even just be like I was saying, I could have bought that house in Chama, have an off-grid house and still go to the grocery store and still,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
So I think a homesteader is more about growing your own food. It's like
Right.
getting off the food chain grid as well as
Yeah,
not
yeah.
just the utilities grid.
Right. But yeah, all of them like moved out to the middle of nowhere and had no neighbors, and that's how they wanted it.
Yep.
And they had no community.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that is my worst nightmare.
Yeah. And I think the worst kind of modern elitism I can think of
Right.
is I am so right in my thinking that I don't even want to be exposed to other people who don't agree with me.
Right.
Like to the point that I don't want them touching my food or my space. You know, it's like that's terrifying and so entitled, right?
Yeah.
Like I
And
am,
it's sad because it's like you don't feel like you need to help other people. You don't
right,
feel like other people can help you.
right,
Like, what?
yeah. I I get a mistrust of the government again,
Yeah.
only growing as our infrastructure fails us and corruption runs rampant. And you know
Yeah.
yeah, we don't have an FDA or a CDC that's really doing anything right now. It feels like, you know, so food supply is terrifying in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
And energy is like kind of up in the air. Like those are all very valid questions. I think removing yourself from all society altogether, get it? I get it. But I think it's the wrong answer. And I will be kind of judgy about that.
Yeah.
It's very elitist and very self-harming, I think.
Yeah.
As I sit here never leaving the house. But, you know, I do still have community.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
And like we were saying in our community episode, we are already so removed from community. We have so few third spaces and so few places where we are around strangers who are not in the same situation we are in, right?
Right. Yeah. Did you watch that short video that I
Yes.
linked? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an intentional community.
So it was this. They're kind of famous in the permaculture world, but they're the Bullock brothers, kind of like
Yeah.
Sandra Bullock. But I loved how he said, aim for resilience, not self-sufficiency,
Right.
because
You're not here to cut yourself off.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're not as human beings. We're not supposed to go it alone.
Yeah.
And did he say the butcher that he's like you
Yes.
should? Yeah, he's like,
Find a trade. Everybody needs a butcher. Everybody
That's
needs a
right.
carpenter. Everybody needs
oh
a
my god. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to link this video because it's like a 2-minute video, but he says
Yeah.
so many insightful things. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's like talking about how people used to encourage their kids to,
learn a trade with college. Yeah.
yes, like go to university, but also learn a trade for when a depression comes. And
Yeah.
we've completely lost that.
Yeah.
And he's like, people just don't have actual skills. And
Yeah.
it's like, it is so true.
Yeah. I know I'm always like, what's my skill? I'm a great storyteller. Nobody needs that. I am very good at
I disagree with that. But
Okay, well, no. But like yes, storytelling is important, but I do have other practical skills. I do know how to cook. I do know
right.
I can make bread from scratch. I can, all these things. I have
Make a mean
that.
cocktail, I'm
I
guessing.
can, yeah, the most important things. I can make a mean cocktail. But yeah, like I can do things like not like Sean can. Sean can build stuff, But yeah, learn something like learning how to butcher an animal, probably a great idea. Learning how to identify edible plants, probably a good idea. Good skill to
Yeah.
have. But like, yeah, knowing how to sew, great skill to
Yeah.
have.
Yeah, he was like, aim for the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
Yeah.
Like actual practical
Yeah, be
people that you
useful.
need in your community. Yeah.
And again, he was saying to be a producer rather than a consumer, you know? And I like that idea.
I loved it. I thought
Yeah.
it's just so totally different than.
How we think of things.
Yep.
Yeah. It's
Yep.
all, how am I going to make the most money? Okay, how am I going to help our community when the wheels fall off?
Right.
Can I be the Wainwright to put the wheels back on? Yeah.
Yes. But I don't think it works if you're only producing for yourself.
No,
Maybe
I
it
agree.
does. But I just don't think it's the same.
Well, and that's a dire circumstance. Like, only producing for yourself is like zombie apocalypse. Here's the thing about apocalypse. It is not ever you have to fend from the zombie hordes. It's not ever going to be that. It's going to be the grocery stores aren't stocking food as often. It's not that they're not stocking food. It's just unreliable. I mean, we're kind of already in it. Some of the food is unreliable. We don't know when the cyclospora is going to be bad. And that, won't always kill you, but it could kill some of you.
Yeah,
There
it
might
has.
not be eggs.
Yeah.
And so it's already
Peppers,
happening.
like, yeah.
Yes.
Or it costs so much that it's cost prohibitive.
Right.
And you're like, I can't afford that. Are you crazy?
Yeah. And it's not going to be all at once that there's some asteroid that hits. It's just like, yeah, the roads aren't getting repaired. And yeah, I can't rely on the electricity in Texas to be there during a freeze. So, okay. And in that situation, can I be the neighbor who has the warm house that people can come to in the neighborhood?
Right.
It's not, can I defend my warm house from my neighbors who,
Yes.
it's going to be a 3-day stretch where people can come here and I have running water and
Right.
heat. Not, oh, they all got to move into my Fort Cat, like
Yeah. Get
not
out our
this year.
guns. Yeah.
Maybe in 50 years. But
Right.
the apocalypse is slow and less drastic than you think. And that is
Right.
the issue.
Right.
So my kind of take on this was I think self-consumption is an easier target to hit, if you don't have $1 million to go really live off grid, or you're
Yeah.
willing to throw everything away and go, I mean, living out of an RV can be considered off grid, self-consumption might be an easier target.
Yeah.
Again, it's still $25,000, $30,000 to get solar and a battery at your house. Probably a good idea to just do if you can, depending on where you live. It can help the overall grid be cleaner, right?
Right.
If we are electrifying our homes through solar rather than coal anyway, we can reduce that part of fossil fuel stuff. And also
Yeah.
you can contribute back to the grid, right?
Yeah.
Which
Which
can-
is really interesting.
Can make it more resilient
Yeah.
for others as well. So
We have an absolute boatload of sun
yeah, we do here in Texas for sure.
beating down on our house all
Yeah.
summer.
So look into solar. So it really depends. If a normal person can do this, where you are, how much money, time, and ability you have or are willing to learn, and how much you're willing to change,
Yeah, and my teacher had a really good story about one of her friends. Hi, Kelda, if you're listening.
Hi, Kelda.
One of her friends, she said, wanted to brush her daughter's hair more often.
Oh.
And so she moved, I think she moved from the city, or at least from like a more suburban area to the mountains. But this woman was working in the city. So her commute basically like doubled or tripled.
Yep.
So she actually had less time, even though she
Yep.
was living in the middle of nowhere.
That's like an O. Henry story. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's sort of just like this dream world. It's like it's good in theory,
Yeah.
but the
Is
reality,
your actual life going to fit into it? Yeah.
Yes. And so yeah, she was saying like there's a lot of ways you can get what you want where you are, and it doesn't mean you have to move to the middle of nowhere. So
Yeah. No, I think that's totally true. Like there are again those risks that you don't think about until you do it. Like it sounds ideal and it sounds wonderful, but
yeah.
I have thought like, oh, I would love to live in the country, and then it's like I like being able to walk to a bar, I can't even live in the suburbs. I want to have a coffee shop I can walk to. I want to have a library I can walk to. I want to have a bar I can walk to. So I'm not going to move even if it's cheaper for me to live in the hinterlands,
Right.
it's not for the type of life I want to lead, not cheaper in the long
Yeah.
run. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And I know that about myself now. But.
Yeah, totally.
So for granola rating, so every week we rate the system, service, product, whatever, on a scale of 1 to 5 granolas, 1 being bad, 5 being best. And it's a crunchiness scale where, 1 is soggy, 2 is mushy, 3 is chewy, 4 is crunchy, and 5 is break your tooth off. I was kind of back and forth between a 3 and a 4 on this one.
Okay.
I think it's a really great dream ideal.
Yeah.
And like maybe in 20 years, we're all going to be forced back off grid just like our ancestors were,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's accessible to everyone as a decision that you can make. Or that it's not something that I would be like, yeah, this is something absolute. I mean, it would be cool to say, yes, this is something absolutely everyone could do. And I did see some articles out there that were like, yes, everyone should do this. I can't judge people like that. I can't, like, yeah, I get why you don't live off grid. I get why I don't live off grid,
Yeah.
So, between maybe a 3, just for how kind of inaccessible it is to most people. Still a
Okay.
good idea.
Yeah.
And I think we can all use a lot of the ideals of off-grid living for
Yeah,
our own
totally.
lives. Like,
And try to implement them into our own
yeah,
lives.
limit consumption, use it like it's not an unlimited resource,
Yeah.
because it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Grow
So,
a tomato plant, like whatever.
yeah.
Grow an effort garden.
Yeah. Supplement. So, yeah, that was off-grid living.
Nice.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Vibes. Vibes.
Yeah.
Close up of my face
Close
vibes.
up vibes.
I think just
There you go. It's kind of like my electric vehicle. We
Yeah.
leased a Ford Mustang Mach-E, and I'm not going to say I recommend it to anybody because guess what? They put a freaking button. They wanted to be like Tesla. They put a button where there should be a handle. If that button worked every time you pushed it,
yeah.
that would be one
I
thing.
hate it. Yes.
Wait, how do you know it? Do you know somebody with one?
I have been in one.
Yeah. And you're like, push.
Hey,
push.
open. Hey.
Maybe 5, that the 5th time.
It's
you'll
like,
be
oh, you wanted to open the door?
Yeah. I'm like, you don't know how much I miss handles. I'm like, why? And like
just
every single
want the
person, I
physical
drop
thing.
Charlie off every day. Every single
Yeah.
person's like, I don't know how to get in your car. I'm like,
I
I
know.
know. I'm
I
so
know.
sorry. I have to roll the window down. Just push the button.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And there's not even like, it's like a button you push and it pops open.
Yeah.
And you're like,
How do I override this?
what do I do? Yeah.
Yeah.
Do I just pull it open?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very dumb. So, over engineering is
Yep.
creating problems that we shouldn't have.
Yeah. I just miss my hand crank roll down windows too.
I know, right?
Although
I
it is
actually
nice to just be
don't.
able to hit a button.
I
yeah.
really don't. Yeah.
But when they don't work,
True.
then you miss
or
the
if they
hand
get
crank.
Stuck. Yeah. Yep. It's so true.
Yeah.
But yeah, having to try to hand crank over the seat. Oh, that was
Yeah.
the worst. I remember I had my little Honda Civic was a hand crank window, 2008. Wait, that's not even right. 1998. Sorry.
okay.
I was like, that was way too new.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1998. And I think every other one of my friends had like electric windows.
Yeah.
And I was just like, hold on a second.
Oh yeah, or if you have it down and it starts raining and you're like,
Yes, you're
wait
like,
for a
"Damn
stoplight
it."
to roll it up. Yeah.
Yeah.
There is that.
It's so funny.
But yeah.
So good. All right. Well, that was our season.
Season 10 is done.
Wow.
Good job,
Wrap
us.
it up.
Yeah.
Nice. End on vibes. I love
Yes. Off-grid vibes.
it. Yeah.
But yeah, we are doing season 11 starting October 1st, and we are going to do some listener requests. So if you
Yeah.
have one, there's still time. We
There
might
is.
combine things. We've kind of got a calendar, but if you have an idea, we have some fun ideas, but
Yeah.
send it in.
Yeah. Send it to us on Instagram. We're at Greening Up My Act, or on Facebook, Greening Up My Act, or email greeningupmyact@gmail.com. We look at all of those pretty frequently. So yeah, send us your ideas because we have some spots some
Yeah.
slots we can slot you in. Cool.
And
All right.
we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Yeah. Bye.